business units, you understand the plans that we're going to be looking at today. All right, so before we start, for those who are here for the first time, my name is Paul Erubami. I'm a facility manager. I've been training and teaching facility management for more than 12 years. I've worked in facility management for more than 25 years as a professional. And I'm excited to lead the team of Max-Migold, where we have, not only trained facility managers in the last few years with training on project management, health and safety, strategic facility management, maintenance management, operations management, and all the other short courses that we've been providing. But we have been rolling out and teaching the facility management diploma, a comprehensive 3 months program that covers the body of knowledge for managing facilities, focused for us on the African continent and across the world, really, because FMMC body of knowledge that is global. The last batch of the FM diploma, which started a couple of weeks ago, we're ending registrations for that class tomorrow. So tomorrow, the 15th of September, is the last day for getting into that class. We were able to, enable people to join the class, 2-3 weeks after we start, because we have recorded, videos of all the classes. We have a learning management system where these videos are displayed with all the materials and the forum for interacting with one another. And we have a fantastic WhatsApp platform for the class where you enjoy interactions with your classmates, and also feedback and suggestions or whatever ideas you have for the training team. So I would say, if you are still sitting on the fence, not sure whether you should join the 2023 final batch or wait till 2024, for a new dawn or a new year to start the 2024 batch, I would say the last day for being able to join the 2023 final batch is tomorrow, 15th of September. Okay. What we've also done is, for those who had one concern or the other about money, we understand what the economy is saying now. We have opened and extended our bonus, 100,000 naira bonus, so that you can pay less 100,000 if you are paying full between today and tomorrow. And if you are taking the installment payments, all you need to do is pay a couple of installments and spread the rest over the remaining 4 to 10 months, depending on whether you're taking the 6 months or the 12 months program. So, and then if you're interested in reaching out, the number to call is or send WhatsApp messages to is 080-220-20122. The number again is 080-220-20122. And the website for the FM diploma is promo.facilitymanagementcourses.com. promo.facilitymanagementcourses.com. So that's where you get all the information. In fact, the entire facilitymanagementcourses.com website is owned by Max-Migold, and it contains all of our training packages, in there that you can always enjoy or participate in anytime. So whether you want to do virtual program, want to do a short course, or want to take the physical class, please feel free. The schedule is very flexible, and you always find something that suits or work for you. Now, back to our launch hour series. We've been doing strategic facility planning. We looked at the big picture. We looked at the building's life cycle. We looked at the critical information and documents that should come out of construction, and then we looked at documents that you should have in place, knowledge you should have before you start managing any facility. We established the strategic facility planning cycle, understanding, analysis, action, understanding, analysis, planning, and action. And so at the end of the act, before you even get to the act phase, by the time you produce the planning, you should have developed certain documentation. That's where we are today. That's where we are today. And then we try to put the FM levels into perspective. You can run facility management at the operational level, at the tactical level, and the strategic level. We also compared them to, in terms of how important they are, the kind of impact you can make from whichever level. So if you are at the operational level, what kind of impact will you make on the entire organization? Low, because decisions taken at the strategic level, which answers why we are doing what we are doing, is what cascades down to the tactical. The tactical is where you have the annual plans, the budgets, so many projects get into FM, and when they start being able to develop a budget, say, oh, we are doing strategic planning, we're looking ahead. That's not deep enough, because the budgets and the project plans and the cap and all the things you're going to do this year to next year are all part of tactical planning. They are not strategic, right? Because they answer to the question, what are we going to do? And when are we going to do it? Who's going to do it? Those kind of questions. How we're going to do it, who's going to do it, mostly answered at the operational level. But why is answered at the level where we talk about the high level objectives of the organization. So the mission, vision, strategic objective, the culture, the values, and the principles that run milestones the organization has set for its own path to progress as it's moving on in its history. What kind of achievements or accomplishments is it looking forward to? The FM's job is to take that information and not just go straight to, we know where the organization is going to be at this point, we deliver to this level, and then we know where it's going to be at that point, we deliver to that level. No, you don't just start delivering. You also create your own strategic plan. It is based on your strategic plan that you can now say, okay, so what maintenance approaches are we going to adopt? What kind of contracting strategy are we going to adopt? Where are we going to locate? Where are we going to, do we expand? Do we contract? Do we rent? Do we lease? Do we buy equipment? All those big questions happens after we know why we are doing what we are doing. Okay, so once you have spent enough time understanding the organization's high-level strategy, you now see yourself as fully immersed in the organization, just like the people in the C-suite, the directors and the MD and chairman. They are the ones that really have the vision. You've spent enough time understanding what this vision is, understanding that you have done because you have looked at the data historically, and you can plot, a forecast. This is for the organization. So all of those analyses, what are our strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and all the other things we've done in the analyze and then the going into the planning phase. The whole idea at that level, in fact, still at this level, is to have a full understanding. When we have a full understanding, we now sit back and say, okay, so as a facility management department, real estate department, property management department, whatever organization or department or division, whatever the organization calls it, that unit, that manages the physical facilities, plants, machineries, buildings of the organization, will need to sit down and say, let's create a strategic plan. So they start at the level of, which is the highest level of FM strategy, which is called a strategic facility plan. What we call the strategic facility plan is, is a portfolio. It's a set of guidelines or rules that governs how physical facilities are going to be acquired, managed, operated and maintained, and disposed of in the course of the facility that we are managing. So it's important that we understand that. Sorry, 1 second. I need to do a quick. Okay. So we will need to develop a document that guides the entire process. So if we have to have a facility, have a location, what guides how we select the location? Whether we're going to buy, build, or lease or rent, what guides that? What are the long-term objectives, that we must achieve with every site that we acquire, right? So once we do, and then what are the guidelines for site development? What are the benchmarks or performance benchmarks or metrics that every site that we cite, that we create and deploy for the use of our organization must achieve, for us to say we are following this plan? That is the strategic facility plan. It starts with having a statement of facility objectives. If I'm the head of physical facilities in the organization, what are the strategic objectives of facility? What does facility contribute? This is speaking to key performance indicators, which are, critical benefits the organization gets from for the acquisition of its physical facilities. Those are statements of facility objectives. We will speak to things like what are goals regarding productivity, workplace productivity, how we want the workplace to be perceived. Sometimes workplace attracts talents. People you want to work for you may not want to work in the spaces that you have, right? So if we want to use our physical facilities to attract the best talents in the industry, you state that. If you want to have aesthetically pleasing premium appeal of your facility spaces, I mean, write down your objectives. If it's efficiency and economy that you are driving for, you want to have a space that is very efficiently run, that is the cost per square meters is within a certain threshold. You set, in terms of maintenance and operation, you set those objectives. So you are using a vision of what your ideal facility will do for the organization, will be for the organization, the kind of impact it will be making to set your facility objectives. So that's the first thing you do, because the facility objectives is what's going to guide everything else you do. Whether you're going to renovate, whether you're going to build or buy, whether you're going to do it in-house or outsource it, all of those things will come in later. So that's the first consideration. Statement of facility objective. Let them not be too many. Let them not be too complex. An objective should be a single objective. A line item should be a single objective. It shouldn't be we want to make the facility aesthetically pleasing and also efficiently managed and want to make it sustainable as one. No, each line item, because you want to be able to use these objectives to create key performance indicators that are going to go into metrics that you're going to be measuring for every site when the facility is in place, right? Then risk analysis of options. So this is basically if we're going to acquire a site, if we're going to acquire a facility today, right? What are the things we will consider? What are the things we will consider? Because there are some organizations that will tell you, we don't rent. If we can't find a property to buy, we'll buy a land and build, right? So if you have such considerations and your preference is to buy a property, there must be certain risk analysis or certain conditions that property must meet in terms of the kind of locations we are looking for, the type of buildings we are looking for, the kind of area, every area has its own zoning regulations where it says this area is residential, this area is retail or business area is, can be used for different things. What kind of zoning criteria are we considering for property we want to buy? What kind of utilities has to be around or within the property, and so on and so forth. We're analyzing just one of the options we're going to buy. If all the properties that are available in our chosen location or preferred area don't meet those analysis options, what do? We're falling back to the next one, which is to find a site and build. And if we're going to build, what kind of structures do we build? Are we building temporary structures, marquee tents? Are we building concrete structures, for life? Are we, whatever it is, there will be considerations. Now, these are high-level considerations. You also do sustainability analysis, so our impact on the environment in terms of energy, in terms of water, in terms of materials used, in terms of waste disposal and reuse, and so on and so forth. You list out sustainability considerations and say, we will fall between this threshold and this threshold, okay? For example, we want to have the ability to not put in more than 20% of our overall waste into landfill. We want to be able to recycle, reuse, 80% of solid waste from our site. We want to be able to treat and recycle and reuse our sewage so that we'll give out only less than 5% of sediments for other uses. And we're going to, so you're creating long-term goals, because if these things are not defined, one architect will design something for you somewhere, or one facility manager will, rent a building somewhere, and it is what you see, whatever is there is what you're going to take. Or an agent is trying to help you find a place to rent, because of course you have the option of renting if that's what you choose in the second option. And then you're getting to the building and you're like, oh, no, this is not going to help us achieve this goal and that objective. So it helps you have a big picture view of what kind of facility we can have, what kind of sustainability metrics we can have. What are the kind of energy sources we can look out for? Can we have a mix? Do we want to set targets for mix of renewable versus fossil fuels? Do we want to set targets for energy use per person, energy use per square meter, what we call energy use intensity targets? So you are setting those targets, and this is as an organization. So the strategic plan really is not something that the FM should just sit down and write. No. It comes up with all of these ideas and it takes it up to senior management. Senior management will have to say, yes, this really aligns with our corporate strategy and where the organization is going, and we would like to give back into this. It's eventually as adopted, approved by senior management, but the FM or the real estate manager, the property manager, whatever nomenclature you have within the organization, somebody in charge of physical facilities should be able to come up with this, this guidebook that management will look into and say it really aligns with what we are looking for, right? Such as uses of funds, you also, have to mind that aspect. We organization have, how much of his annual revenue is typically spent on physical facilities, because organizations are not there just to spend all the money they have. They have to be a way of planning long term. Just like when we have a national budget or a state budget, and you're hearing things like, oh, we spend less than 10% on education, we spend less than 7% on health, and so on and so forth. Organizations should also have, this is the percentage of our revenue that we can part with for physical facilities related transactions, so that if you are developing a new site tomorrow and you are thinking about going high rise, build a 20-story or build just a 3 or 4 story, the trajectory of your organization is going to guide that decision. Because if you already have a strategic facility plan, these are the sources of funds, these are the expense to revenue ratio that we can adopt for facility capital spend or facility spending altogether, then I have my, my decision cut out for me already. Okay, so an organization that is doing very well, income is coming in, and we have a strategic facility plan that says so percentage can go into physical facilities. I can see that money will be there to finish a 20-story high rise and lease, sublet, whatever I want to do with extra space. As far as I'm seeing that the organization is going bigger, and over time we're going to fill up the whole place. And now we have the money because of what the strategic facility plan that has been approved by management says, right? Then operating expenses analysis. So you need to set benchmarks for, so if we have so grades, buildings have grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D, like that, right? So if you have adopted any of the grades as what you are really working towards, what kind of operating expenses should you look at? Or you can create options from number 2 there, where you have if we have need for this grade, then our operating expenses should be this cost per square meter, or that range between this cost and that cost per square meter. And then the people that use the facility, you could also have the targets as to how much per person for delivering various type of FM services or aggregates FM services. And every property, every facility that you invest in, it's a financial investment. Nobody gets a building for free. Everything you see, it costs initial cost. It also costs of ongoing running costs. And because of that, you must have some financial metrics. These financial metrics are things that help guide go, no-go decisions. For example, they guide milestone or phased planning. For example, you want to build something that big. Can we build it in small phases? When we're in the second or third phase, how can we tidy up to be able to start using to start getting value at so and so stage, right? Now, in all of this, you have to have set long-term targets for return on investment. If something sounds lucrative, something that we should do, sounds okay, that we should do it, and I look at the return on investment, so it's going to cost this amount, it's going to give us this amount per this period as return. Does it meet our targets, ROI? Does it meet? So whether it's ROI, whether it's net present value, internal rate of returns, payback period, these are financial analysis that I use to set benchmark, so that before you even take anything to management to say, can they approve this investment for this and that, you already have a guide. You already have something that's already there to say, if it is not within this threshold or this range, we will not accept it, right? So you need to work on your project plans or your capital plans or your future plans to ensure that the benchmark set on the strategic facility plan for returns for every investment, you are meeting it. Sometimes the FMs or the real estate team don't have this kind of documents, right? And so they see themselves coming up, oh, we want to buy a new generator, want to build a new house, want to rent, want to acquire this and acquire that. And management is looking at the returns for every money they spend. So should we give it to marketing? Marketing says if they get that money, they're going to increase our revenue by 20%. 20% means we're going to get, extra 2 billion, for example, as revenue. And we know how much of that is profit. So they can easily calculate when the other business units are giving them financial metrics. What about the FM? The FM says, give me that same amount so that I can use it to buy vehicles, for example, or use it to renovate the office and make the place more productive. How do I calculate return on investment, so that it can be compared with what other business units in the organization are given? Because even when I finally get some wisdom to calculate my return on investment, I must make sure it meets the minimum threshold approved in the strategic facility plan. And then life cycle cost analysis, whole life cost analysis. The organization, we need to make decisions on, the kind of grades of materials we will use, the type of equipment we will install based on the life cycle, right? So what this means is that you have to have decisions already written in your strategic facility plan that you will do life cycle analysis for every acquisition you are going to make. What does that mean? Usually when you want to start a project, at the tactical level where you want to start something, we need to build a crèche or an FM building, or want to build a fire station, or want to build a mall, or whatever we want to build. There's usually that bring the money, right? Let's see what options are there in the market, all right? And when we are looking at those options, we are often tempted to go for the one that make the most sense financially, only based on the initial investment sum. That's not life cycle. That's not whole life cost. I can buy something cheap today, but how long is it going to last? The first question. And how much am I going to put into it on an ongoing basis for its lifespan? And what am I going to get in return for that asset investment, right? So if I take a decision as an organization, take a decision now on what our focus will be on life cycle, it will be easy. It should be easy for us to take decisions that we're not going to go for the lowest. Some organizations will tell you, it's lowest bidder, always lowest bidder, right? Or the lowest cost at the beginning. If you do that, you've not taken a long-term decision on life cycle approaches, then you may end up, getting your figures burnt on an ongoing basis, right? But again, if you already put it there as your policy that, we'll always go for the cheapest because time value of money means that we can always spend the higher money later, right? Put it there. Your strategic facility plan should be what drives. This is more like a policy book. Everything I'm touching on here is like a policy document or a procedure document, or some kind of strategic plan, or how would I put it? Something management will enact as this is something that binds us in this organization. Then look at cost-benefit rating of alternatives and recommendations with clearly stated assumptions. So what you're basically doing in strategic facility plan is putting together what I call your property acquisition, use and disposal manual. Okay, this is going to feed into every decision you take regarding property in your organization. So by the time I get to, we have an office in Lagos, and we want to probably set up a production facility in Abeokuta, right? So we'll look at strategic facility plan and say, what kind of zone must it be? What are the options, risk analysis of options? Should we consider what sustainability analysis, sources and use of funds? All of this have been predefined. We'll use them as guidelines to start, doing searches. Are we searching for property? Are we searching for land? We are guided. When we find options, we say, okay, fine, let's do our analysis. Let's compare the options. Let's use our financial metrics. Somebody should come up with a set of drawings and a bill of quantities. Let's see the final estimated cost. Let's look at the return on investment. Let's look at the kind of materials we're buying for the roof. What kind of materials? What are the alternatives? How long does this material last before it starts giving a problem? How long does this other one start? For the walls, what should we use? For the floors, what should we use? Should we paint over plastered surfaces, or should we screed it? What is the difference? What are the alternatives? Those are what we are looking at. We are looking at long-term decisions. They're all long-term. Everything strategic is long-term. But in this case, we are building a guide. So your strategic facility plan is like your guide, your master book, your playbook, your documents, your Bible that has all of the pointers to how you can make decisions. That's how it is. Now, if I now get to Abeokuta and I want to build that factory, that production facility, I now need to work on the facility master plan. That site will have a master plan. The master plan is a long-term plan for how I'm going to acquiring is answered by strategic facility plan, but develop that property, build it out, whether in phases or once, and then all the way to the operations and maintenance and even disposal. I have to create a long-term plan for that site. That master plan will be guided by my strategic facility plan, which means if I'm about making decisions about options, I look at what my strategic facility plan already says about that decision line item before I conclude on what I'm going to do for this master plan. So it is possible to have a site in Ikoyi and a site in Abeokuta having different features, but meeting the same requirements as spelled out in the strategic facility plan. So that's the key difference I want to draw out for you, so that when you are looking at a master plan, you're looking at one site, not the entire organization. The strategic facility plan is talking about the entire organization. Whatever we're going to do is going to be guided by this, wherever we're going to do it. That is strategic facility plan. It's a long-term, high level. But then you have long-term, high level for one site. Okay, so this is where I'm looking at, okay, take location, for example, zoning, regulation, covenant assessment. What kind of buildings are we going to build? How does the zoning of that area, does our building purpose meet what that area zoning is for, right? So that has to be answered. So for this site, yes, we said this. Space standards. Space standards, benchmark descriptions are talking about, you start with who's going to use the facility, what are we going to be doing here, and who are going to be working here. For every function and for every individual, what kind of space should be allocated? Because it's not enough to say, let's build a 5,000 square meter facility. No, you build it up. You have to start with space standards. And that space standard look at the functions and the people, right? So you build it from first principles and you get to a point where you say, for this kind of work, for this kind of person, describe this kind of space. For this kind of work, for this kind of person, describe this kind of space in terms of size of space, services to be provided, everything to be provided, right? I create that into my guide. So when I'm going to have maybe space type 1, a junior officer, for example, how many junior officers are we going to have here? Oh, they're going to be 100. So 10 square meters with so and so utilities times 100. I'm building my overall scope already, right? We're going to have a chief operating officer sitting in this. What does the chief operating officer get? He gets an office of 30 square meter. He gets a conference room that can hold 15 people in meeting. That's another 40 square meter. He has, this and that amenities and services. He has a private toilet and so on. I've built that into. So I'm going to have one chief operations officer. This is requirement. I'm going to do that for all of the users, prospective users. Okay, and if it's an existing site, I'm going to develop it based on what is already existing, maybe with some modifications if we see areas that requires modification. So that fits into the program of space use, where you now have all of the spaces developed into a schedule, right? This space is for this space is for that, this person sits here, does this. And then you have workflow analysis. How will the site be developed? We're going to have a planning to brief, to design, to construction or contracting for construction, handing over, and so on and so forth. We discuss all of that in this plan. This is for one site. And then assessment and plan. So we're looking at engineering constraints, like maybe rocky areas, slopey areas, built up around you. How can you develop your own property when your crane cannot swing freely, for example, and so on and so forth. A lot of these considerations take place in the engineering assessment and plan. And then block feet or stacking plans. You are looking at, okay, so if it's a facility that is going to rise, right? we'll create a stacking plan for every floor. What units or departments or individuals are going to sit, how do they relate with each other? So we do this because we want to create a proper workflow for the organization, right? How do people relate? What kind of work do they do? How do they, so if somebody is in the reception, for example, is this a facility that people come in, we meet public, who meets the public? And if the public comes in at the reception, who are the departments that they are normally funneled to? Where should those departments sit, right? So that it will shorten the flow span for individuals coming into the organization. It not doesn't tell well to have reception at the 5th floor. So people come into a lobby and take elevator to the 5th floor to get the reception that can direct them back to the ground floor, 1st floor when they need anything. So that's what we do. We create a block fit or stacking plans. So whether it's stacking for high rise, block for horizontal, or fit, how various components interact and fit into each other. And this can lead us into the site plan itself, right? So you create a concept site plan. Vehicles coming like this, they park like this, all of this. At this stage, you'd have gotten your planners, your architects or designers, your engineers all working, because right now you are developing this one site, okay? Long-term maintenance plan, because that's something that's also very important. You don't once you've created the site, you need to consider some of those high-level long-term issues like maintainability, sustainability, operational readiness. For operational readiness, I'm looking at the flow of people, the activities, the efficiency in enabling them to get to what they want to do within that site. For maintainability, I'm looking at the flow of, for example, I want to separate the flow of maintenance and supply teams from the flow traffic of building users. Can I put an elevator somewhere? Can I have a different road or access for refuse bin trucks, and so on and so forth? I'm doing all of this because I want the plan to work. I don't need to start building before I start saying, oh, no, this has to come from this side, that has to come from that side. No. I have to also consider things like drainages. Where does the drainage flow towards? How high is the road? These are things that you hear engineers and architects talking about, but the FM should be involved. That's what we're saying here. Don't be a stranger to this planning, because you produce the strategic facility plan, which is the guideline for taking decisions on the facility master plan. So you must be part of it. You must be there to be understanding what is being considered. If we have sewage, where will it, when we treat our sewage, where will it flow through? Even if we don't want to treat it, for example, we are allowed by law to evacuate and go and dispose it in a government facility. Where would the truck, stand to do the evacuation? How far can it come? Which direction can it take? Where are we going to site our generators, our powerhouses, considering the noise?
Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
how do they, in the reception, for example, is this a facility that people come in, we meet public, who meets the public? And if the public comes in at the reception, who are the departments that they are normally funneled to? Where should those departments sit, right? So that it will shorten the flow span for individuals coming into the organization. Not doesn't tell well to have reception at the 50.
Yes, sir, we can't hear what you're saying.
Is the mic working now? Can somebody hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to another session of the launch hour. I'm excited to see all of you here today. Last week, we wrapped up on the strategy sessions, which we ran for about 4 weeks. And today we're going to start something new, asset management. This is one area of our professional lives that we need to actually start, because this is what I probably refer to as FM 101. So this is the basic of facility management, because we provide resources to enable the core business to excel. And as such, we must know how to acquire, manage, and dispose after operating and maintaining our assets over their useful life. Before I jump into this, I would like to just announce that next week we'll be having a short course, 28 and 29, the facility management operations course, as well as the facility management health and safety and the strategy course running for 2 days. So if you are interested in a short course, please come in and join. Just to remind you again, just like we did last week, that the FM Mastercraft Diploma that's ongoing has closed admission for this batch. which means if you are participating in or hoping to participate, you'll be working towards joining the January 2024 batch. What we have made possible for everyone who's thinking about this is that between now and November 30th, you'll be able to lock in the old price. The FMMC virtual has gone from 350 to 399, and the physical has gone from 450 to 499 as with effect from next batch. But anyone who pays between now and November 30th will be able to lock in the old price and also be able to start paying to lock in the old price and then complete paying to lock in an additional discount for early bird of 10%. So that's old price plus 10% if you pay up by November 30th. Old price if you start paying now, and even if you can't finish paying by November 30th, provided you started paying now, you'll be able to lock in the old price. So that's what we have on offer right now. So I'll just share my I'll share my screen just to give you a little preview of what we're talking about today. Okay, I believe you see my screen now. So we're going to be looking at asset management. We're talking about in facility management. Assets are those things that make up our facilities, make up our buildings, and the items we acquire and install fit into our buildings. If you hear about asset management, from a real estate management professional, it's not talking about tables and chairs and roof and generators. It's talking about buildings and malls and hotels. And assets from that standpoint is higher level. If you hear of asset management from a Charo perspective, we are talking about human and intellectual property that belongs to the nation or that are available to the organization. About assets from a finance expert, we are talking about financial instruments, things for generating revenue, things that can be invested and revenue produced from those. If you hear about asset management from an engineer, plant, manufacturing, production organization or professionals, you're talking about assets in terms of a system, equipment system, a plant, machinery, or any such items. But for us as facility managers, we're looking at assets as those things that provide value, things that provide long-term, could be short-term, could be long-term, but provides value. They are not liabilities. They are value to the organization. 1 second, let me check on my view. right. Anyone? Hello, do you hear me okay? Hello? Do you see my screen? All right, thanks. All right, so what's an asset? Something of value that the organization owns, it benefits from, has use of, in generating revenue or income. Whatever you have as an individual, corporation, government, public, private sector organization that has economic value with the expectation that it will provide future benefits. That's what an asset is. So that's why you hear financial experts talk about the differences between assets and liabilities. Liabilities drain you, assets give you value, right? So whether you look at it in terms of accounting, real estate, engineering, or any other type of profession, assets will mean different things to different organizations. But in facility management, assets are components of the building as well as fittings, fixtures, equipment that are installed into the building. So we account for each of them separately. So I would account for the roof, the walls, the windows, the doors, the floors, the finishes, the furniture, the fittings, the trees on the sides, the equipment that are installed, plumbing systems, electrical systems, power generating systems, and so on and so forth. So that's what we see as assets. Now, but there are other things that we acquire. So financially, we spend money buying them, but we don't count them as assets because we use them to manage our assets. We call those ones inventory. So sometimes you'll see some software that are built by non-FM professionals, and then you will see them talking about your building assets as inventory. What then would they call the materials and spares and other equipment that we use to manage, the buildings? So that's why in facility management we say there's a difference between assets and inventory. We use up inventory to manage and sustain assets. Okay, so if I use that differentiation, if I have stack of paper, gallons of fumigants, if I have drums of polish, drums of oil for servicing generators, I'll call all of those ones inventory. So most materials and consumables will fit into that category of inventory. We track them so that we monitor the other levels so that we can have enough items to take care of our assets. But our focus as facility managers is on the assets themselves. Okay, the assets are the ones that we are managing for the value we're trying to get for the organizations that we serve. So typically your asset will go through the same life cycle process that you will have for a building. Okay, this life cycle would apply to physical assets, physical plants, physical buildings, physical anything. First is the initiation stage where you design, you construct, you procure. So everything that has to do with drawings, specifications, permits, contract schedules, processes standards. That's the whole conception stage of acquiring. So if you want to change that into a more holistic comment to say this is the acquisition stage
conceive of the assets, it's a problem. What need do you want to satisfy? What opportunity do you want to take advantage of? So you're answering the question around why you need that asset. Once you define that already, you now move on to, okay, so how much, how big, how small, how many, what's the scope and scale of the requirement that need, that opportunity, so that's how assets are born. As soon as you finish designing your scope of design drawings, whatever goes into that process, you go into a procurement process. All right. So this is where you run through procurement, develop and arrive at agreements, which we call contracts, purchase contract, the build contract, whatever kind of contract. And these result in the assets actually being deployed, made available to us. As soon as that stage of acquisition is done, you now move into using the assets. That's where the operate phase comes in. We are now operating the asset. To operate anything means to use it. Basically, you know why you acquired it, so you now want to be able to use it. So, opening time, closing time, cleaning, activation, measuring efficiency, looking at all the inventory that are consumed in its operations and maintenance and everything that happens there. This is operate. You're trying to make sure the asset is available for use. Assets are made by a human, and as such, there will be there's what we call a degradation curve. So from the day you acquire an asset, no matter the assets, the quality is that high. So on the vertical axis, there's the quality, and on the horizontal axis, you have the time. So as the asset, ages, in fact, from day one, the asset has started aging. By the time you get a brand new car from the showroom, for example, and drive it to your house and wake up the next morning, that car is already a fairly used car, isn't it? That's the same way every kind of asset. Every day they age. The quality, the value, the whatever premium we place on it is at its peak when it is newly acquired. As time goes on, the asset quality, value, utility begins and continues to dwindle. That's what we call the degradation curve. So that a year after you bought a generator that you've been using for 1 year, you don't expect that generator is still new, still sounding as fresh and clean, still emitting, smokeless emissions, still, all of those, sharpness that you got at the beginning. Even the volume, quality of power that it produces is no longer the same. After 2 years, it gets worse. After 3 years, it gets worse. Now, this process of operating and running through this normal degradation curve means that every now and then we have to fix certain components, because the reason degradation occurs is the word defects. There are defects, and these defects can come out of wear when you gene of materials that go into the equipment or asset you've acquired, can come out of intensity of use, wear and tear that come out of vibration, temperature fluctuations and changes, and so on and so forth. All of this will lead to different types of repairs. And then, so repair and maintenance actually work together during operations. They are used to keep an asset and equipment running. The whole aim of an asset, the whole reason why you have the asset is so that you can operate it, so that you can deliver value. So see that operate as the process of delivering or receiving value from the assets. So the repair, maintain, upgrade are things you do along the way to keep operations. They are supposed to support operations. Maintain, you could have routine, regular maintenance. You could have, which is the PPM. You could have the monitoring approach, where you have systems to monitor equipment quality and utility, and then acting when there's any evidence or sign indicating dwindling in those qualities. That's maintained. Sometimes even with the best of maintenance, you still have breakdowns, and so you still need to get into the repair mode. And then as this degradation curve, increases, it gets to a certain point where the quality is now so low that even with all the maintenance and repair you are doing, certain components, certain aspects, or even the entire equipment might become obsolete, right? Sometimes it's obsolescence. Sometimes it's no longer meeting the needs of the owner and the users, that will make you want to do an upgrade, an overhaul, that kind of intermittent activity that helps to bring it back to as close to as practically possible to the optimum state it was when you acquired it. But even with all the overhauling and remodeling and upgrades that you do to property or physical assets, it still has to get to a point where it will need to be retired. So that's the end of life. Now, what's important for us as facility managers is we don't allow this whole process of managing an asset happen by itself. We don't just leave it to chance. We plan it so that in the choices you are making at the point of acquiring your assets, you are looking at the entire life cycle. You are looking at what it will take to operate, maintain, repair, upgrade, and retire. That's part of your life cycle comparison or analysis, right? And then you are consciously creating a plan to run through each of these phases from the moment you acquire. So you're not only answering the question why I need the assets at the beginning, you're also answering questions as to what I'm going to do with it, that's the operate, and then how I'm going to maintain, repair, and upgrade to keep it running. All of the how questions are answered all in advance. So the reason we're talking about this is don't allow your assets be something that just happened to you. Let it be something you consciously took decisions, documented decisions, back analysis on what you would do before you acquire and as you acquire the assets. So you have full tracking and full control of a scientific approach to that process. So we will not say, let's just deal with how to acquire the assets, or my business is not, I don't have business with how to acquire it. I only maintain and operate an existing asset. No. Asset management is taking that entire life cycle and say, how can I systematically put a process in place for deploying, operating, maintaining,